Oh, the music stopped. But that means we're here at We Nation Radio and We Nation Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. It is an honor for us to be here with you. And welcome again to We Nation Radio. And this is our podcast. We're so honored to be starting our second year in our partnership with the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let me share with you about We Nation Radio. We Nation Radio, we started it in 2017, and it stands for Watoto Entertainment and Education. And Watoto is Swahili for children. And we are the best in family-friendly global beats for little feet. That's right. We got music just for our children, 0 to 12. And we play the best in R&B, hip hop, funk, jazz, reggae, go-go, calypso, merengue, and African world rhythms and more. All again, that's age appropriate and culturally relevant. You can download our app right now onto your phone, onto your devices. Just look for We Nation Radio with 2 E's. Download it. It's free of charge and it's commercial free. You can't beat that. And it's our job to be able to get rid of what we call music adultification. That's where we force our children to listen to inappropriate adult music instead of age appropriate music. Well, we got the solution here. Well, we have a solution. So we want you to support us there. And today we're starting again our partnership with the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which happens to be my alma mater. Well, they have a program that we started with them last year through last year was through the Sherman Center for Early Learning in Urban Communities. And now it's through the Sherman Teacher Scholars Program. So we got the scholars involved, we got the schools involved, we got the authors involved, but most importantly, we have you involved. And this particular project was launched, and it's called the Diverse Books Project, and it was launched in April of 2018. And the goal of this project is to ensure that early childhood educators at their partner schools, and these particularly are the ones in Baltimore City, have access to high quality, diverse children's books and opportunities to share ideas and insights about their use. So what they did was they put together experts in the field of children's literature, and they curated this selection of exemplary books, and they sent them to the Baltimore schools, and they got all these books to choose from. And guess what? One of the ones that they chose is our guest today. Oh my goodness. And that's what we love about it. It's about the community and what they want to hear and making sure we're diverse. I have a diverse project. So my guest is Dr. Artika Tyner, and she's committed to creating a world of inclusive leaders who will meet the pressing needs of today and work towards a better future where racial justice and economic justice reign supreme. So you got race and class issues coming together where we are defeating that so that people can thrive. And Dr. Tyner is not only just a book author, but she's a lawyer, a social change agent, researcher, a nonprofit founder, and a leader. And you know, this other thing about a motivational speaker. Do you know what a motivational speaker does? Well, it makes you want to get up. It makes you want to move. It inspires you to do more. And you're going to learn about that right now, because we're going to bring to the We Nation Radio. Please help me to welcome to We Nation Podcast, the one and only Dr. Artika Tyner. Welcome to We Nation Podcast.
I'm honored to be here today.
All right. Oh, this is great. And first of all, tell us where are you at right now in terms of what part of the world are you in? Speaking to
I'm
us.
in Minnesota. I'm in St. Paul, and our neighborhood and community is called Rondo.
Okay. Is that where you live? And how long have you been there, if you have?
I've always lived in the Rondo community. My family, when they migrated north, made this our home 5 generations ago.
Oh, so they migrated. And where did they migrate from? I love these backstories because it's important to hear how we all are connected.
My family migrated from Mississippi and Alabama.
Mississippi, Alabama. Okay, that's awesome. And so welcome to the podcast, and congratulations on having your book chosen by teachers and students to be part of the Diverse Books Project.
Definitely honored and look forward to talking about how books inspire change.
Okay. And then before we even get into that, how did you even become an author? What was it that inspired you to become an author? And talk a little bit about that process.
I became inspired to become an author because I wanted to be able to see the books that I didn't see growing up. Now, of course, I started off my journey as an author writing legal books, writing books about leadership and my general research related to my dissertation and my work as a civil rights attorney. But I knew I was missing a link. I woke up one morning and said, you're supposed to use your voice, use your intellect, use your resources, gifts, and talents to also inspire young people. Because I started to wonder, how can we inspire more young people to attend college, to attend law school? And that starts with the power of a book and imagining the possibilities and the infinite possibilities that lie within each scholar. So my books are really directly related to the young people to tell them to dream big and make sure your dreams are big enough to scare you. Those words from the first female head of state, President Ellen Sirleaf Johnson. If your dreams are not big enough to scare you, they're not big enough.
Absolutely. And you say a civil rights attorney, and I want to delve into that a little bit. Describe what that really is, and then I'll share with you some background that I think I may have some similarity in some of the work that you've done.
As a civil rights attorney, that truly means that I work on day by day by day on the issues that impact everyday people like you and I. But specifically, my work focuses on racial justice. So those issues that impact communities of color, in particular the African American community, around access to education, making sure that we have access to a quality education, make sure the schools have the resources that they need, and also related to the criminal justice system, because I grew up during the peak of the war on drugs. And I know many of the challenges that communities can face when they lack the resources to reach their full potential, being able to build safe communities, strong families. And I knew there was something that I had to do. Well, the community organizers that I grew up with, our community elders often said, got voice, got power. And I believe the law is a language of power. So I decided to use my voice to make sure the rights of my community was protected.
Now, I know that, some of the power behind the civil rights movement was that they were able to organize and really change a lot of things, but specifically the law, as you're speaking of. So I have a background. The reason why I mentioned that is that for over 25 years, I've been a Title VI and Title VII EEO investigator trainer within this 1964 Civil Rights Act. And not sure if you've done any work. I'm sure you probably have within that. And if so, talk a little bit about that, because, and I can talk all day because I'm passionate about being a neutral third party trying to resolve discrimination complaints, whether, like I say, as a mediator, as a trainer, but more importantly, even as an investigator, which I've conducted close to 1,000 something investigations in my life. Talk a little bit about that. Have you had any experience working in EEO types of complaints or activity?
Not directly, but I have worked on it related to both policy and also
Yes.
evaluating the effectiveness of the process. And what I mean by that is ensuring that people have access to information about their rights, so raising awareness, but also ensuring the efficiency and effectiveness of those systems and processes. But when I think about the challenges around discrimination, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's related to a government agency, oftentimes people think that was such a long time ago. So we tend to be a little dismissive and uncertain of what we're seeing when there are patterns of discrimination. There are patterns of discrimination that lead to the type of inequities that we see in every community USA. So when I think about the type of work that you do, first of all, expression of gratitude, because we want to make sure that the rights of everyday people are honored and protected. And through the process that you're referring to, it's one of the mechanisms where not only we can investigate, but we also can create change and get to the root causes of the challenges that we're seeing. So I would leave us with the challenge of not thinking that the civil rights movement was a million years ago. And case in point, recently I was at a conference and someone was trying to convince me that Ruby Bridges, and we've seen her story, the young lady who was left in a classroom by herself because the community would not initially agree to integration, facing harassment as a young girl. But why am I talking about Ruby Bridges? Because most people are trying to convince me that that happened 100 years ago,
Right.
or 80 years ago, or 90 years ago. Like Ruby Bridges just recently turned 70 years old. Now she's turning 71. But this is our recent history. So the work that when we think about civil rights, it's addressing the challenges that we face today, also looking back to the challenges of yesterday, but also building a better future.
Right. And, and you're absolutely correct. My mother was born and raised in South Carolina, small town, Davis Station or Somerton, but she went to Scotts Branch High School. Scotts Branch High School is one of the schools that's connected with the Brown versus Board of Education. And a lot of her, I call them my family, because when a lot of them migrated here to the Washington, D.C. area, we all grew up in the same church. And many of them are listed in the Brown versus Board of Education. And the reason why it's Brown is that you couldn't list all the names. They listed them in alphabetical order, and the first name was Brown. And so, but you got the Lawsons and Olivers, and all of those are pretty much my family. So it is. You're right. It's not something that happened a long time ago. And I've always said that history is not an event; it's a process, and that process still connects us where we are right now. And let me just make sure, for those who are just tuning in, I am Uncle Devin, the children's drum cushionist. And you're listening to We Nation podcast, and my guest is Dr. Artika Tyner. We're talking about a number of different things, and we're going to now talk about her number of books. First of all, tell the audience a little bit, how many books have you authored?
I just finished my 40th manuscript.
Okay. All right. Okay. We can finish now. I'm done. I can't. She's done all the work for us, and that's great. 40th book. That's a real great achievement, and congratulations for that. What's the last book that you published?
The last book was related to, as a part of a series. It was about A. Philip Randolph and his work as a civil rights social engineer. Looking at his work in organizing unions. I could go on and on and on, but A. Philip Randolph, many people said in his time that he was truly the father of civil rights movement, in the sense that he paved the way and helped to inspire the likes of Dr. King and the leaders that helped to bring us to where we are today around raising a nation's conscience around racial equity. And what was unique about A. Philip Randolph, I would say, his ability to mobilize and organize. If we look at something like the March on Washington, now yours truly can mobilize maybe 25, 50 people, 250,000 people and counting. And
before the internet.
Yes. So that's the type of power A. Philip Randolph had. So I felt honored to get the invitation to write the book, to thank one of my heroes who truly demonstrated and laid a platform and a blueprint that I can continue to work from to help mobilize for change.
Well, then, speaking of change, let's talk about the book that was chosen for the Diverse Books Project with the UMBC Sherman Teacher Scholars Program, and that is Justice Makes a Difference. First of all, I love that name, Justice, and I love the fact that the main character's name is Justice. Tell the audience a little bit about this book.
This book I was inspired to write just based upon my own experience. As a little girl, I was encouraged by my grandmother to, once again, to dream big, to make a difference. She demonstrated each and every day of her life. She didn't necessarily have all the money in the world, but she had a conviction that every one of us had a responsibility to lead and serve in our community. And for her, it was, of course, fueled by her faith. That notion of to whom much is given, much is accounted for. And if I look at anyone during my lifetime that I personally witnessed their life's legacy manifest, it would be my grandmother. She would start her day serving and organizing efforts to make sure she was dealing with homelessness, food insecurity. You name the issue, my grandmother was there with the solution. So Young Justice, I'm sure you can see the likeness from the cover, is from my first Great Citizen of the Week photo. And truly, Young Justice, and the grandmother that you see is actually my maternal grandmother, my grandma Nellie, who took me on that journey as a young girl to say, no matter your age, you can and you will make a difference.
And to have that instilled at a young age is extremely important. And I love the fact that you mentioned a lot of historical figures throughout the book. Name some of the mention some of the names of those and why they were important to add to the book.
The first one that I'll mention is Paul Robeson, because I hadn't heard his name until my adulthood. I was doing some of the research for my dissertation. And Paul Robeson, how could I have missed his story? Many say that he was a modern day Renaissance man, that he was truly one of the wealthiest men of his time. And notice I didn't say wealthiest Black man, but the wealthiest men of his time. And what I love about Paul Robeson, he understood two things. He understood first the power of mentorship. Yes, his career was cut short in the peak of McCarthyism. His passport was banned. Many thought he would never sing again. He'd never organize again. But he got even more powerful because he started training other young people to lift their voice for justice, like
Yes.
Harry Belafonte, for instance, telling
Yes.
him that if you could get people to listen to your song, they'll want to hear your story. And we know the rest is history, that Uncle Harry was then able to inspire change once again around the world for civil rights, human rights, and racial justice. What I also love about Paul Robeson is that he had a global message that human rights and civil rights was about every human being, that we have a shared humanity and common destiny. So he sang freedom songs in more than 20 different languages. And why do I highlight that? Because he decided to use his voice, use his talent to get people to sing in this grand harmony of freedom, this majestic choir around what does it mean to obtain justice? What does it mean to obtain freedom? With the power of the song, he brought people together.
Absolutely. I grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. It's the same denomination that Paul Robeson comes out of. And his father was the pastor of Mother Amy Zion Church in New York. And his is it great or great nephew was I know him well. We used to have a lot of conversations because I think he's now currently the pastor at that particular church. And I learned a lot about him. But one of the reasons why people don't know a lot about him is because uh, it's something that if you just focus on civil rights, they seem to be a little more safer. But when you start connecting civil rights with human rights, that's when people kind of shy away from that. And so his story is an incredible story. And I wrote about him in one of my first books, which is a non-children's book years ago. And I'm so glad that you mentioned him. But you also mentioned another one of my sheroes, Ida B. Wells. Let's talk a little bit about her.
Ida B. Wells. I need not say more than just say her name, because the very essence of her name is related to power, of strength, and
Yes.
tenacity. The reason why Ida B. Wells stands out to me is because of her work and her willingness to write for justice. When I think about the challenges that she grew up witnessing, especially related to racial terrorism, which we call lynching today, very few people would have taken the time to not only document what she was seeing, but to publish it through her book, The Red Record, and to make sure that no one could ever deny the names of the people who were killed just based upon their race in most instances, that they were
Yes.
African American, and people could get away with it, and people could take their story, could take their legacy. Hence why the EJI Memorial and Museum in Alabama that was created by Brian Stevenson is so important, because it's bearing witness. It's the second generation of the Red Record that you can visually see with each name, with each pillar, the legacy of racial terrorism, but the hope for the future of racial harmony. So Ida B. Wells really set the course for some of the things that we see today, that we have a chance, when she has this quote, that when we see an injustice, that we turn the light of truth on it. So I think she's helped us all to move towards the light of righteousness, the light of peace, and the light of justice.
Absolutely. And, we know that the struggle continues. Um, we know that, of course, not only were they killing people just because of their color, just because of their status in life, but also, as with Paul Robeson and others, they took his passport, they wouldn't sell his books anywhere. And that leads us to now where we have people banning books. Um, can you talk a little bit about, your experience with that? Have you been impacted by any of that in terms of any of your books not being allowed to be sold in certain school districts or parts of the country?
Yes, I was
Okay.
actually one of the authors that experienced it's the first series of book bans, actually, with the book that we're discussing today, Justice Makes a Difference.
Really?
And if you go back and see a bit of the history on how I responded to it, my response was that Justice, the young girl in the book, she doesn't have a political affiliation.
Hmm.
She doesn't have an agenda. The only thing that she's trying to figure out as a young 8-year-old girl is what is in her hands to make a difference in the world. And she is blessed to have her grandmother on that journey with her to see in different ways. And she learns about those heroes and sheroes, not just Ida B. Wells, not just Paul Robeson. She learns about Dr. Wangari Maathai, who decides to plant trees for justice. She learns about Charles Hamilton Houston, who laid the groundwork for the case Brown versus Board of Education at least 40 years before the case was ever heard in the U.S. Supreme Court. She learns about how Ella Baker inspires young people to become agents of change. So on this learning journey, she's able to see that she can truly be a leader. But yet this book is banned in the notion that it's focused on social justice, that it's political. And I still would ask the question today, show me where. I'd love to see the page. This page is supposed to be, and even if you start with the cover of the book, you know, the most powerful thing that's happened with this book is the young people, and especially the young girls and Black girls and the young girls who wear glasses, the young girls who are left out, the young men, the young people just in general who feel like their voices aren't heard. The greatest compliment I've ever received from this book is she's just like me, or she looks like me. And that has been the greatest sense of gratitude that I can receive as an author, to know that the book is inspiring the next generation of leaders.
Absolutely. And it is a beautiful cover. Who did your illustrations?
Our illustrations are from Jeremy Norton. And one of the reasons why we're so excited to work with Jeremy is because Jeremy really focused on the likeness of not just my grandmother and I, but the likeness of everyday people, and the expression and the brilliance, the radiance of melanated skin. He really took it all. He took the essence of everyday people inspiring change and brought it to life.
And I also see the other name associated with the book. Is it Jacqueline Milton? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, you are. Jacqueline Milton is the co-author. I also call her Mama. So when I initially started writing the book, Mother is the most candid, the most authentic reviewer you can ever have. So I handed the manuscript to my mother. I'll never forget it. It's like, Mother, what do you think? Is it ready to go? What's next? She was like, no, it's not ready to go. And the children won't resonate with it. And, you know, I was like, oh, Mother, that one, that cuts a little deep. Are you sure? And she was like, yes, because, and notice what she said. She said, because you're writing to adults. You have to write to children. Yes. You have to make sure you understand what makes a child laugh, what makes a child smile, what makes them cry, what's their ambitions, how do they talk to each other. So Mother sent me, and most people don't know this part of the story, but with those questions, Mother sent me on a journey of about a year, traveling across the nation and just asking young people one simple question: what does it mean to be a superhero? And I remember my first visit was on the East Coast at a home learning center in Maryland. And we were asking the children that question. They were 3 or 4 years old. And I was like, this is going to be a day where we didn't fully get our, you know, I'm a researcher. So I'm like, this isn't the right audience. They're not the right age group. And then automatically the young people started talking. And they said, a superhero saves people. A superhero makes the world a better place. A superhero makes a difference. So then I knew our theme was correct. But truly, based upon Mother's advice and with her support, and my mother's a school teacher, by the way. She's worked in schools or early childhood education most of her life. And so then we were able to work together to make sure that the book was age appropriate, but the same theme, that the young people can be a superhero and anchor in their lives and change their community and their schools and everything surrounding them. We kept that the same. But I learned an important lesson: know your audience. First lesson as a lawyer, I knew it. But know your audience, connect to your audience, and be able to hear their voices.
Right. And then we can always tap into the child in us as well. Go back, and because we do become very sophisticated as adults sometimes, and we forget that that aspect of us as a child, so that we can connect with that. And for those who are just tuning in, you're listening to We Nation podcast. I am Uncle Devin, the children's drum cushionist, and our guest is Dr. Artika Tyner, author of over 40 books, but specifically the book today that we're focusing on is Justice Makes a Difference, the story of Miss Freedom Fighter, Esquire. I love that.
Justice Makes a Difference, the story of Miss Freedom Fighter, Esquire. This book is dedicated to the loving memory of our grandmothers, Ruth, Nellie, Rosie, and Nadine, who taught us the importance of love, leadership, and service. Justice's favorite place to visit was her grandma's house. Grandma always greeted her with the biggest, warmest hug. Grandma always made Justice feel important. The best part of Grandma's house was her den full of books. Justice and Grandma would spend hours together in the den, talking and reading. Your name is your destiny. Grandma had been telling Justice since the day she was born. Grandma reminded her often that being named Justice came with great responsibility. To whom much is given, much is accounted for, Grandma always said. Justice might not have understood all the words that Grandma said, but she understood that she was meant to serve and lead in her community. One day, when Justice was visiting, Grandma asked, "What is in your hands to make a difference in the world?" "What can I do?" Justice wondered. "I'm only 8 years old. How can I make a difference?" Grandma served in the church. She fed the hungry, sheltered the homeless, clothed those in need, and visited the sick. Grandma described this as living out her faith. Justice wanted to be like her grandma. She wanted to know how she could live out her faith. Grandma found Justice in the den, heavy with thought. "Tell me what's bothering you, Justice," Grandma said. "I want to live out my faith like you, Grandma. But I'm only 8 years old," Justice said. "What can I do? Aren't I too young?" Grandma's smile was gentle and reassuring. Your age does not show what you are capable of, so don't let someone tell you that you're too young to make a difference. Justice, do you remember the poem you wrote for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration at your school? Grandma asked. That poem made a difference. Justice remembered the applause of her teachers and classmates. She knew her grandma's words were true. Grandma gave Justice a book. Here's a book about someone else who made a difference through her writing. Justice spent the rest of the afternoon reading about Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was a journalist who used her writing to advance racial equality. She skillfully wielded her pen to wage war for justice through her work as editor of the Memphis Free Speech and Headlight. She continued to advance social change while serving as a journalist with Chicago's Daily Inter-Ocean and the Chicago Conservator, one of the oldest African-American newspapers in the United States. Justice was amazed by how Ida B. Wells used her pen to write for justice. Justice picked up a pen and said, "I can write for justice." All that week, Justice worked on a poem about love and peace. When Justice visited the next weekend, she showed her grandma the finished poem. Words are powerful, Grandma told Justice. They can be used in powerful ways to do good or to do harm. That's why it's important to always be careful with your words. You did good, Justice. Justice smiled. Grandma always made her feel proud. Justice, I have another book to share with you, Grandma said, and handed Justice a book with a picture of a man on the cover who stood larger than life. Words can be powerful, and music can be powerful too, Grandma told her. Justice read all about Paul Robeson, who sang freedom songs in more than 20 different languages. He was a lawyer, a singer, an actor, and a professional athlete. Justice marveled at how talented Paul Robeson was. He was able to touch people's hearts through the power of song. These songs empowered others to join in the fight for freedom and justice. Justice had grown up hearing her grandma sing powerful songs like "We Shall Overcome" and Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." These were freedom songs. When Grandma sang, Justice could feel it all the way down in her toes. "Grandma," Justice said, "I want to sing for justice. Will you teach me some songs?" Grandma began to sing. "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Justice felt a light inside her spark. "Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine," she sang. Sometimes, when Justice visited, she helped Grandma in the garden. Justice loved the way the warm earth felt under her feet. She was amazed by how the tiniest seed could become a big vine full of juicy red tomatoes or a tall forest of okra plants. Grandma would sing while they worked, and Justice would hum along. Their music served as the rhythm for their digging and planting. Planting a garden was hard work, and it gave Justice a lot of time to daydream. She fantasized about what it would be like to travel around the globe. "What's the most exotic place you've ever traveled to, Grandma?" Justice asked dreamily. Grandma chuckled. "I haven't been much outside St. Paul, honey." Grandma smiled. "But I've traveled all over the world through books." This made Justice happy because she loved to travel through books too. After they were finished in the garden, Grandma gave Justice a book about a woman in a faraway land. "Happy traveling," Grandma said. Justice read all about the country Kenya and the work of Dr. Wangari Maathai. Dr. Maathai was a global leader. She organized the Green Belt movement with the hopes of restoring trees in her home country, Kenya. She sought to restore the beauty of nature and uplift the close-knit community. She began by organizing mothers, daughters, and grandmothers to take action by planting one seedling at a time. More than 51 million trees were planted. Justice had an idea. "Grandma, can we bring the community together like Dr. Maathai and start a community garden?" Grandma smiled her proudest smile. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Should we invite others to help?" "Yes," Justice said. "We can grow fruits and vegetables. Maybe we can ask our neighbors to help us." During one visit to her grandma's house, Justice was quieter than usual. She sat on her favorite green chair in Grandma's kitchen, drinking lemonade. Grandma looked concerned. "What's troubling you, Princess?" "My friends at school said women can't be president," Justice said. "But I always thought I might grow up to be president someday." "Justice, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't be who you want to be." She wanted to believe her grandma, but she still wasn't sure. When Justice got home from Grandma's that afternoon, she found a book in her backpack about Shirley Chisholm. She knew it was from her grandma because her grandma always left books in hidden places as special gifts. Justice read about Shirley Chisholm, who became the first African American woman to run for president of the United States in 1972. She called herself the candidate of the people because she was determined to fight for the rights of all people. Justice became very excited. "I can be president one day," she said to herself. Then she stood tall and said with confidence, "I can fight for justice." Justice couldn't wait to tell her friends at school about Shirley Chisholm. She told her grandma all about it. "Grandma, now all my friends want to be president." "I'm counting on it," Grandma said, smiling. "What else are you learning about in school?" she asked. "This week, we learned about the legal case Brown versus Board of Education," Justice told her grandma. Grandma got a faraway look in her eyes. "I remember attending school in a one-room shack in Alabama," she told Justice. Dozens of students of all ages gathered in the schoolhouse to learn together. We didn't have much. Most days, not even paper or pencils. But we had a love of learning, Justice couldn't imagine going to school in a one-room schoolhouse with kids of all different ages. Justice told Grandma she learned that Brown versus Board of Education was a case about ending segregation in schools. Grandma, we learned that Black children were not allowed to attend school with white children. Yes, Justice, I remember, Grandma said. The schools were separate and unequal. Grandma, we also learned about the lawyer who worked to end segregation in schools. Justice was proud to know such important information. Indeed, Grandma smiled. Charles Hamilton Houston. He said lawyers should serve as a mouthpiece for the weak and a sentinel guarding against wrong. That's a funny word, Justice said. What does it mean to be a mouthpiece, she asked. Grandma explained, a mouthpiece means that you use your voice to share about the challenges people face in society, like ending hunger or ending homelessness. What does sentinel mean? How about you find out for yourself in your dictionary, Grandma said with a wink. Justice ran to find her dictionary. She paged through until she found sentinel. A sentinel is a soldier or a guard whose job is to stand and keep watch. Wow, Justice thought. I can be a soldier for justice? Finally, Justice was sure. She knew she could make a difference in the world by becoming a lawyer. Her love for superheroes inspired her vision for the future. She had a dream of becoming Miss Freedom Fighter Esquire, a superhero with a law degree and an afro. Now Justice could see herself more clearly. She was determined to use her education in the struggle for justice. She finally understood the meaning of her grandma's words. To whom much is given, much is accounted for. Justice would live up to her name. Justice, are you ready for bed? Asked Grandma. Justice could not believe how fast the time went by. She had remained in the den all day with her books. As she lay down for bed and finished her bedtime prayer with Grandma, Justice said, Grandma, I will make a difference by becoming a lawyer and helping those in need. Grandma gave her a reassuring smile and kissed Justice goodnight. Justice found a book under her pillow, another special gift from Grandma. Justice began reading about Ella Baker. Ella Baker helped the young people of the civil rights movement get organized and take a stand for equality and freedom. Justice fell asleep, quietly humming Ella's song. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can shed some light as they carry us through the gale, struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. What is in your hands to make a difference in the world? That was the question that was raised by Grandma. She asked Justice, what is in your hands to make a difference in the world? And you remember Justice is not quite sure. She pauses because she's only 8 years old. But Grandma modeled some ways that justice can make a difference. Now the question is, what is in your hands to make a difference in the world? Here's a few ways you can make a difference. First, you can share the lessons you learn from this book. Inspire your friends and family to make a difference. You can also tutor younger students in your school. Share what you have learned in math, science, and reading. Help someone in need. You can volunteer to do chores for elders in your community. Collect food and volunteer at your local food shelf. Organize a fundraiser for your favorite charity. So, what are some ways that you can make a difference in the world and your community?
Someone needs to wants to get in contact with you and learn more about the book. What's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to contact me is either my personal website, which is my name, Artika, ARTIKATYNER.com, ArtikaTyner.com. You also can learn more about our work. And our work, truly, just like Justice Making a Difference, we know that you can make a difference by connecting with our work, hosting a book drive, learning more about our books, purchasing our books, getting the information out there. So that is Planting People Growing Justice Leadership Institute. So ppgjli.org.
Okay. And I want to expand on that a little bit more because I know you mentioned something about having a three-legged stool when we talked earlier in terms of the work that you all do. Can you expand on the three aspects of the work that you do for with that organization or with your company?
Yes, Planting People Growing Justice has three key elements. The first one is our nonprofit literacy organization. That's in direct response to our nation's reading crisis, that 1 in 4 American children cannot read at grade level by 4th grade, increasing their likelihood of dropping out of school by 4 times. But here's where my work pivoted probably about a decade ago as a civil rights attorney. Most of my clients learned how to read while in prison. Why is this the case? Because if you drop out of school, you're 3.5 times more likely to be arrested during your lifetime. 85% of the young people in the juvenile justice system cannot read, 60 to 80% of the adults. So if you can imagine then, most of my clients could not spell justice, they could not spell indictment, or understand fully the totality of their case. We want to change that. The Department of Justice says the greatest indicator of future incarceration is reading failure. And we know we can change that one scholar at a time and one book at a time. So that's the first piece of our work, our nonprofit, helping to increase literacy, helping to build cultures of reading across the nation and the world. The second portion of our work is our bookstore. Through our bookstore and through our book sales, we are able to then help to finance our nonprofit work and our philanthropic efforts in the community, helping to truly get those diverse books in the hands of children and families. And through our bookstore, you will also see we're very specific with the types of books that we're seeking to promote. Those diverse books that can serve as those mirrors and windows, those mirrors of inspiration for windows for young people of color, and those windows for all children to help them build cultural bridges. And mirrors and windows is a theory that also includes sliding doors of those cross-cultural experiences from Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop. But when I talk about this, those mirrors and windows, what I'm really talking about is making sure that we have diversity in our bookshelves and ensuring that we help to build cultural bridges. The last and final portion of our work is our publishing house. We are working on training the next generation of writers. And in particular, we launched a 100 Black Authors campaign to help to ensure that we see diversity in the publishing industry, books that help to celebrate the beauty and genius of the entirety of the African diaspora. So we are training our young people to be the writers of their own destiny.
Oh, that is great. Congratulations on all of that. And we wish you nothing more but just continued success. And let me just switch it up just a little bit and ask you something on the lighter side. Can you let us know what's your favorite food?
My favorite food is anything that comes out of my mother's oven and off her stove. So I'll tell you what that includes. Soul food, of course. Black-eyed peas, candy yams. Oh, she does the works for me. Those collard greens. Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
You get that cornbread going and put that fried chicken on the side with the and then she comes up with that pound cake and peach cobbler. Oh,
see, I think that's got to be part of the civil rights struggle right there, because that's what fed the movement all those years. So yeah, that's great. And then also, what is your favorite color?
My favorite color is green. My favorite color is green because a part of that means when I talk about the civil rights movement. We oftentimes don't talk about the civil rights movement. Dr. King also has some concerns. Will we be integrating into a burning house? What would be the economic considerations as we thought about the future of our community? And where we sit today with the racial wealth gap, based upon research, it will take nearly 3 centuries to bridge. We don't have time to wait. So when I say I like green, I'm talking about the financial resources that we need to strengthen and uplift our communities across the nation.
And you also mentioned one other thing, and I'll end with this, about being a motivational speaker. What does that mean to you?
Being a motivational speaker means to me that I get to live out my life's destiny. I oftentimes tell people, based upon my family's legacy, you're either meant to be a preacher or a teacher. When I get on that stage and share the message, I feel like I get a chance to do both of those things. I get to teach about civil rights history. I get to teach about contemporary civil rights issues, whether it's the school to prison pipeline or mass incarceration. I worked at the forefront of the prison phone justice campaign, issues that impact the day-to-day lives of people. But I also, the preacher side, is that I get to activate my faith and give people some inspiration and some hope that we don't have to wait for the future to change. We are the hope for the future. And better yet, you're not alone in creating change. The reality is we are truly one body with many members. So here's our opportunity to bring our gifts and talents together in meaningful ways and work together as a community to manifest change.
That's great. And have you ever written a children's book from a perspective of a child who has a parent in prison? I'm just curious that with your passion, have you ever done that? And if not, I'm gonna plant that seed. So I think I would love to see what you would do with something like that, because I know we have a lot, like you said, that the prison industrial complex is huge, and a lot of children are growing up without their parents because of that. So just something I would just throw out there.
No, I appreciate it. I always look for those reminders. It goes full circle, and it typically it happens that it's the reminder that I need right now. So trust me, it's been on my mind. I have not done it yet, but it is an important message, because that's nearly 2 million children that even Sesame Street had to take attention to talk to.
That's right.
Related to the new character, Alex, that are left out and are not a part of the conversation. And I still oftentimes think about that earlier report from the Vera Institute. It says that they experience something beyond the grief or loss of a parent. They experience vicarious loss. Vicarious loss meaning it's repeated. Every time that they go visit their parent who's incarcerated, every time they pick up the phone and have the conversation, it's this ongoing journey of grief that a lot of young people never receive healing from, of the trauma of seeing their parent incarcerated. So yes, I accept the challenge.
Okay, thank you. No, this is great. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to being here, and again for your book being selected by the UMBC's Diverse Books Project. And I look forward to also just checking out some of your other books and following what you do. And again, our guest is the one and only Dr. Artika Tyner, author of over 40 books. You can follow her. We're posting her information up here, but she's an author of Justice Makes a Difference, as well as 39 other books that you can find at artikatyner.com. And Artika is spelled ARTIKATYNER.com. So please support her. You see that there are people out here that's trying to silence her. And one way we can combat that is if everyone just go and support her books. It's very important, and share them with other young people. So Dr. Tyner, thank you so much for your time and for being a guest here on We Nation podcast.
Thank you.
Well, and again, this is such a great experience for me to be able to really reach. This is what we call our royalty in our community, people who are making a change and who are doing different things. And you can find more information out about the Diverse Books Project by visiting or going to the UMBC website. And UMBC stands for University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And it's the shermanCenter.umbc.edu/diverse-books-project. And I want to commend them. I want to thank them for this partnership. We're going into our second year, and we're providing teachers and parents with pretty much an alternative way of encouraging children to listen to books. Now they can listen on a radio and have music that is played to reflect this. And so we're going to have some great times doing that. So thank you so much for your time. I believe I've covered everything I needed to cover for today. And we welcome you to continue to follow. Go to the We Nation Radio podcast, follow, subscribe to us. We need your support. We don't get corporate financial support. To be honest, we scare them because they want to be able to control. And this is corporate America, want to be able to control what our children hear. And our job here at We Nation Radio is to take back control of what our children listen to, something that is educational and informative, not something that's going to bring them down. So we can use your support. Go to We Nation Radio, download our app, look for We Nation Radio with 2 E's. And by the way, and I'll even challenge every adult listening. You don't even have to have a child to listen. I guarantee you, if you listen, you're going to enjoy the music because we don't dumb down the music. We just make it age appropriate and culturally relevant. So check us out there. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today here on We Nation Podcast. It's been great. And as I've always said, just remember that life is a drum. So beat it.